From under $200 to under $1,000, there's so many different iPhone models to choose from, and in this video, I'm going to help simplify things for you by giving you my top recommendations for what iPhones I would get in different price ranges. From under $200, under $400, under $600, under $800, and under $1,000. Now, I also understand too that everyone's needs and wants are different, so I'm not only going to give you my top recommendations, but also my top recommendation for biggest screen size and for the most tech features. I'm also curious too that a lot of my viewers who watch my videos that are really interested in technology, what iPhones you would get for the different price ranges down below. I'm going to quickly start by mentioning iPhones you shouldn't buy because they currently don't get the latest iOS updates, and those are the iPhone 10, the iPhone 8, the iPhone 7, and all older iPhones. Because they don't get the latest iOS updates, a lot of developers are stopping to support apps for them, which is starting to make these phones unusable. I'd also highly caution buying the iPhone XR, the iPhone XS, XS Max, and even the iPhone 11 series of iPhones because they may not get the next iOS update coming out in a year from now. Now, if you are thinking about buying one of those phones, they are good temporary phones, but you do have to keep in mind you're going to struggle to resell them later on down the line, and you may have software support issues. I'm going to start off with the under $200 range, and in this range, you have the iPhone XR, the iPhone 11, the iPhone SE 2nd generation, iPhone SE 3rd generation, and then you have the iPhone 12 mini. For this one, I have two overall recommendations. My first one is for those who have kids or grandparents. In this one, I recommend the iPhone SE 3rd generation, which I know is highly controversial for those watching who are huge tech nerds. So there's mainly two reasons why I chose the iPhone SE 3rd generation here. The first one being is it has the same processor as the iPhone 13, so it's going to get 3 to 4 years of the latest iOS updates, and about another year or two of app support updates. And then another thing too, if this phone is repairs, this is the cheapest iPhone I have on my list to repair, but still it is kind of expensive. A screen's $120 and then a back glass is more than what the phone is worth. But you can find these phones for $170, which is fairly cheap. And it has that home button, which is a lot easier to use for those who are maybe older or are a young kid. Next up, we have the iPhone 12 mini. And I know this one may be another kind of highly controversial one in the tech community, mainly because of the screen size. It has a 5.4 inch screen size, however that is bigger than the iPhone SE 3rd generation's 4.7 inch screen size. What makes this phone great is the design. It has an OLED screen which can turn off individual pixels when it displays the color black, which gives really good color contrast, and the screen too has a really good pixel density, which makes for a better viewing experience. Another thing with this phone too is the screen is an all-screen design, and it has this more modern boxier look that looks, in my opinion, a bit more appealing. And then the iPhone 12 mini does have some added camera features that the iPhone SE 3rd generation doesn't have, like the ultra wide camera and night mode photography. And then we have my top pick for the biggest screen size, which would be the iPhone 11 that has a 6.1 inch screen size and starts at around $200. Now, with the iPhone 11, you do have the same camera features pretty much as the iPhone 12 mini. However, the display resolution isn't as good, and with it being an older phone, there's like a 50% chance it may not get the next iOS update. Now we're moving to the under $400 range, and here you have quite a few more options. You have the iPhone 11 Pro Max, the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12 Pro, the iPhone 13, the iPhone 13 mini, and then we're almost getting to the territory of the iPhone 14. Now my overall pick for this one would have to be the iPhone 13, which has a 6.1 inch screen size and comes in at roughly $370. Now there's a few reasons why I recommend the iPhone 13 over the iPhone 12, which you can find for $100 cheaper. The first one being is the iPhone 13 has the A15 Bionic chip instead of the A14 Bionic chip, which is going to get you an extra year of software support. So you're going to get roughly 4 to 5 years of latest iOS updates, and then another year or two of app support updates. But what's something people don't realize about the iPhone 13 is how easy it is going to be to resell it. So the average person will hold on to their phone typically for 3 to 4 years, and then they'll upgrade. So if you hold on to the iPhone 13 for 3 to 4 years, when you go to sell it, it likely is going to be running the latest iOS update still, and you're going to be able to get more for that phone. The iPhone 13 too does have a few added camera features, Smart HDR4, photographic styles, cinematic video, and then you're getting 10% more battery life in a raised base storage of 128 gigabytes, instead of 64 GB that the iPhone 12 has. And as for reasons why I chose the iPhone 13 over the iPhone 14, mainly have to deal with minimal upgrades. I guess the iPhone 14's back glass is 50% less to replace. It does have an extra GPU core, 5% more battery life, emergency access via satellite, and the action mode and photonic engine for more camera features. However, that's basically it, and to me that's not really enough to spend quite a lot of money extra to upgrade to. And then we have my top pick for the biggest screen size, which would have to be the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The iPhone 11 Pro Max has a 6.5 inch screen size, which is a 0.4 inch upgrade compared to the iPhone 11 screen size. The iPhone 11 Pro Max does have a few upgrades compared to the regular iPhone 11. The first one being is it has a stainless steel frame, which feels a lot more premium. And then it has that OLED screen that I mentioned earlier, so you're getting the same benefits there, which does remind me that the iPhone 12, the iPhone 13, and all the newer base iPhones do have OLED screen standard, in case I didn't mention that earlier. And then the iPhone 11 Pro Max 2 does have a 2x telephoto camera. Now, what kind of sucks about the iPhone 11 Pro Max is it's still in that boat where there's like a 50% chance it may not get the next iOS update. So I was going to recommend the iPhone 12 Pro Max. However, the iPhone 12 Pro Max is going for like $460 still, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max is going for roughly $300. So it's kind of frustrating that the iPhone 12 Pro Max hasn't depreciated value enough to really be worth it, which kind of sucks. I also want to mention too, if you are curious what the current prices on these iPhones are, or you want to buy an iPhone off of Amazon and support the channel with a small percentage of your purchase, I do have affiliate links down below for you guys to check out. Thank you. And then transitioning to the under $600 range, we have quite a few options here. We have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the iPhone 13 Pro, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 Plus, and then this rumored iPhone SE 4th generation. Now, if I was to have a top pick here, it would be the iPhone SE 4th generation. However, this is still a rumored iPhone that's supposed to come out in spring of 2025, but it does have a few upgrades that I honestly think would make it worth buying. So this iPhone SE 4th generation is rumored to have the same design as the iPhone 13 pretty much, with a single camera on the back that's going to have a 48 megapixel sensor. And then there's a few upgrades it's going to have too, like USB-C charging, the action button, which you can program to use for certain tasks, and then of course the newer processor, which is going to allow for things like Apple Intelligence, which is Apple's on-device AI processing that can be useful for certain tasks. As for rumored cost, it's expected to cost around $500. So if you are thinking about buying this and it's like spring of 2025 or later, definitely consider that phone. And then my current overall pick would have to be the iPhone 15 at the moment, mainly because you are getting quite a few upgrades compared to the iPhone 13. You're getting this thing called the Dynamic Island, which is basically a little island at the top that morphs as you're using certain apps to feel a lot more dynamic compared to the iPhone 13's notch. The peak brightness on the iPhone 15 too is raised to 2000 nits for outdoors, which really helps a lot. You're getting USB-C charging, the A16 Bionic chip, which is going to get you roughly 6 years of the latest iOS updates. You have a bunch of added camera features, the photonic engine, action mode for smoother videos, 2x optical zoom, and then a 48 megapixel rear camera to capture a ton of more detail. Currently, the iPhone 15 is selling for $508, and the iPhone 15 Plus is selling for $620. And then my top choice for tech features would have to be the iPhone 13 Pro, which you can find for around $430. And this phone has a ton of tech features that I really like compared to the regular iPhone 13. The first one being is the iPhone 13 Pro has a stainless steel frame, so again, it's getting that more premium feel. But what I really like about the iPhone 13 Pro is this display has something called 120 Hz, which basically makes, as you're using the phone, feel a lot more smoother compared to the display on the iPhone 13 and other newer base iPhone models. The iPhone 13 Pro does have a few other upgrades too that are pretty noticeable. 13% more battery life, a 3x telephoto camera, macro photography, and night mode portraits. Another iPhone I consider buying in this price range is the iPhone 14 Pro, which you can find for about $100 more. The iPhone 14 Pro has some noticeable upgrades, mainly being that it has a dynamic island that I mentioned earlier, but it also has an always-on display. And then the iPhone 14 Pro does have a 2000 nits peak brightness in outdoors, which really helps in broad daylight. And then of course too, you're getting all the upgrades the iPhone 14 had, like the photonic engine and action mode. And then my top choice for the bigger screen size would have to be the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which you can find for just under $600. Now the reason why I chose this phone over the iPhone 13 Pro Max is because the iPhone 14 Pro Max price is currently very close to the iPhone 13 Pro Max's price, so it just made sense for me to recommend it here. And then moving into the under $800 range, we're starting to get into some of the very nice iPhones, like the iPhone 14 Pro, iPhone 14 Pro Max, iPhone 15 Pro, and iPhone 16. Now my top recommendation here for both the average user and for tech people is the iPhone 15 Pro. Now the iPhone 15 Pro has a few upgrades compared to the iPhone 15 that I find to be pretty good upgrades. The first one being is this is the first iPhone to have a titanium frame, which feels super premium. It has a 120Hz always on display that the iPhone 14 Pros have. And then the iPhone 15 Pro 2 has 15% more battery life, and then a ton of different Pro camera features that, I don't have the time to talk about. And as for reasons why I chose the iPhone 15 Pro over the iPhone 16, is I feel like the upgrades the iPhone 15 Pro has would be more appreciated by people, like the always on 120Hz display. And the add features on the iPhone 16 I don't think are pretty major upgrades, like the camera control button, which to me just feels like a gimmick. And then my best choice here for biggest screen size would still be the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And then finally, we have the around $1,000 range, which if you can afford to buy an iPhone for around $1,000, then congratulations, you can pretty much afford to buy a brand new phone. However, I would consider trying to save some money with the iPhone 15 Pro series, mainly because the upgrades the iPhone 16 Pros have, in my opinion, aren't really that big of upgrades. I guess you are getting a 0.2-inch bigger display, the A18 Pro chip, 5x telephoto zoom, and then you're getting 17% more battery life. However, I feel like the battery life on the iPhone 15 Pro is already good enough, and I'm a pretty heavy user. But anyways, thank you all for watching. If you want to support the channel with a small percentage of your purchase, I will have affiliate links down below. Also leave a playlist up on screen of more iPhone reviews for you guys to check out. And then finally, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.